2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Don't Do That, the podcast where we talk about what not to do at work and beyond.
As equity practitioners, we found ourselves often thinking that folks should stop doing things before they start doing things. Hence the title of our podcast, Don't Do That. I'm Anee. I'm an equity coach, organizational equity strategist, and educator with a deep curiosity for how to improve systems and a commitment to lift others as I continue to learn and grow.
I'm Karen, and I've worked in social justice for over a decade. I'm a consultant, coach, and thought partner. My purpose is to make community matter. I do that by helping leaders create better work environments. Anee and I met as consultants and quickly became friends. Collectively, we have over 25 years of experience navigating equity, inclusion, and justice in the workplace. Don't Do That is a platform to tell stories about making mistakes at work and how to fix them. The views on this podcast are our own. We do not speak on behalf of our organizations or the communities we mention.
Welcome, listeners. Today on Don't Do That, we're talking about professional speak and how it's turned into truly its own language. You all know what we're talking about from the let's align, I'm at capacity, let's unpack this offline. We're talking about all of that today. Is it truly professional and smart, or have we traded clarity for corporatese? While these business buzzwords really sound sharp, the reality is I'm not sure any of us really know what they mean. So for a lot of us knowledge workers, our jobs have become communicating all day, from emails to Slack, virtual meetings. So the question just can't be, do you sound professional or smart? It has to be, how clearly are you being understood? So looking forward to chatting about all of this today.
Yes, I am too.
So
This
let's
is a good one.
dig in. In doing my research, I found a couple of things that I thought would help set context for our conversation for today. So first, I read Grammarly's State of Business Communications report. They've been publishing this report, I think, every year since 2022. There were a couple of statistics I'd like to share. So first, there was a statistic in their 2024 report saying that in 2022, miscommunication in the workplace cost U.S. businesses an estimated $1.2 trillion a year.
Wow.
Communication in the workplace caused U.S. businesses an estimated $1.2 trillion a year. Next, from that same report, knowledge workers, so think about folks who work in finance, HR, etc., folks who are using their subject matter expertise to solve problems. So knowledge workers spend about 88% of their time just communicating. So not actually doing the thing, but talking about doing the things. And they have this broken down by certain job functions as well as generations. And they said millennial HR workers were at the top, thinking about how often they communicate, with them spending 47 hours per week on just communication, which is insane because you're supposed to be working a 40-hour work week. So 47 hours on average, folks in HR who are millennials are spending on just communication. And half of that is written communication. So thinking about how we talk, how we write, and what we're saying is clearly very important. It costs a lot, and we're spending a lot of time doing it. The other thing I read was a Harvard Business Review article that talked about how to streamline communication at work. They talked about email urgency bias, which we've talked about before. So how recipients often feel pressure to respond a lot faster than the senders actually expect. So if you send an email at 8 p.m., regardless of your expectations, the recipient of that feels a need to sort of respond quickly. And the biggest challenge in our communication is that people are not making things easy to read. So, i.e., making it easy for those who skim. So people will feel like, oh, if I include a ton of information and all of the business jargony words, that's the way to get my message out. And really, people just need 3 bullets. And then the last thing I will share is this article that was posted on Chief that's called Per My Last Email, Can Your Corporate Jargon Be Discouraging Individuality? And I thought this was really interesting. The premise of the article was really about when language causes people to feel sort of like disoriented or deficient in any way, they're more likely to comply without questioning. So if someone sends you an email with all of these words and you're like, not really sure what that means, you just kind of go with the flow, keep things moving, i.e., there could be some miscommunication, but you feel like, oh, people are using a language that I don't know, and I feel uncomfortable sort of like pushing back. So that was like really interesting to me. So it wasn't just about sort of power dynamics, it was how language reinforces different power dynamics. And then in that article, they also pulled out like how sort of like corporate jargon has been influenced by our sort of like social collective based on different times, which I didn't really sort of stop to think about. So things like value add, buy-in, leverage came from like the 1980s Wall Street language, which totally makes sense. Um, then like 1990 sort of like tech bubble language, things like bandwidth and ping me. Um, and then more recently, we have like a lot of academic language coming into the workplace. So things like holistic and alignment and synergize and dialogue, paradigm shift. And then they even talked about Gen Z slang finding its way into workplaces, some more contemporary slang. So things like, a vibe or understood the assignment, fire, say less, things like that. So I found all of this so helpful, and of course, looking forward to diving in. So I'll start with my first question. As we're thinking about sort of like the confluence of all of these things, like our busy culture, sort of like inefficiencies in the way that we work, our time spent on just communicating and talking about the things, and then thinking about sort of our workplace made of like different generations. Do you sort of think this like business jargon and language is helpful, harmful? Does it feel like, professional, and every sort of professional industry has its own language, or is it more about theater and performance?
It's a really great question. And I have to tell you that in reading this and preparing for this topic, I felt like you read me for filth, girl, because I am guilty of using this language. I have done it in my work environments and work conversations for sure. So, to your question, is it professional or is it more performance? I think it is both. You are performing professionalism. Um, Even if that's not your natural like way of speaking, even if it is confusing, I think it's one of those things where, you start to assimilate to like what's around you. And especially depending on like where you are in your career. I know for me, if it's like a place where I'm looking to grow and advance, it's like, okay, I'm going to learn, how to flow in here. And if this is what people say, then that's what we're going to say. So come on up.
Yes, I agree with that. I think it's like half and half. I think language and shared language makes people feel like safe and competent. And I totally, totally get that. And same, girl, I do the same thing. I changed careers sort of later in my professional life. And moving from like the education space to like the corporate space, of course, I'm
Mhm.
like, now what did they say? They're using what word now? Like I would describe that in a totally different way. So of course you want to feel like you're an insider, not an outsider,
Yeah.
but I do think sometimes people say things and it's genuinely not the right word, or it leaves people confused. So I'm like, okay, so what is the action now? I'm not really
Right.
sure where we landed on that. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea for people to one, feel comfortable showing up like authentically, and they're able to still feel smart even if they don't have like insider language. And I totally get like the idea of the shared language. So
Yeah.
so what is your favorite go-to corporate buzzword or phrase?
So I have a lot, honestly. I was thinking about this. I think my favorite one is like when you're in a meeting and someone's like, "Can we take a step back?" And it's like,
The step back.
the
Yes.
step back. It's always the step back.
Yes.
Which I think is shorthand for I'm confused or this doesn't make sense. And I think we should say that
Yes.
more
I'm
plainly.
confused. Legitimately. This is confusing.
Yes.
Um, and similar, the cousin of let's take a step back. My favorite is let's get aligned. We have to have alignment. I need clarity. It feels like you're on one page and I'm on another, and I'd like us to be on the same. So,
Yeah,
yes.
I agree. And I was also thinking about like the written piece, which for me, that often is like through email
Mhm.
correspondence. And I feel like a lot we talk about apologizing for the inconvenience of things, which
Mm.
to me is shorthand for I'm about to blow up your day or I'm about to blow this thing up that you're going to have to deal with.
Yes.
I don't think you're really sorry for that. I don't think you're sorry for the inconvenience that this is causing me.
I am. I'm always genuinely sorry. I would like to say that. If I ever apologize via email, I genuinely feel like I'm sorry. And I think for me, I edit my emails so much because I'm always thinking about like tone and how it's going to be received. So, yeah, if I apologize,
Mhm.
I meant it. Um, so then the converse of that, what is one that you wish people would stop saying or it's just like not helpful?
So I was thinking about this in terms of the conversations related to like equity and inclusion, since that is a large part of like our expertise and background. And I think the piece around like safe spaces is
Mm.
overused a lot. And
Mhm.
I think there people can use it in a way where like you want to assume that things are a safe space without actually defining like what does that mean and like what are we wanting for people when we say we want a safe space or this is a safe space, especially when work environments have proven to be otherwise. So
It's just not possible. I mean, if we're
yeah.
being candid, it's not possible. And I don't think the intention of a corporate space in a capitalist structure lends itself to safety, in particular for, those who have been historically left out. So
Mhm.
I think I agree. And I think we have started to use one of the articles again that I referenced, talked about like how language that has become like sort of culturally accepted, especially from academia, like has found its way into like corporate lingo. And safe spaces is like an academic term, and
Mm.
yeah, I don't think it was meant to be used in that way. There are other words that I think about, like intersectionality. I hear people use that as, literally meaning like a blend of two things. And that's not at all what that word means. It is a legal academic term talking about the intersection of two marginalized identities. And it was rooted in thinking about Black womanness and yeah, the idea that people are just combining multiple things, like I'm a Southerner and a mom. It's like, okay, that's not it. Like that, that's not it at all. And
That's great.
and
Yeah.
we just like sort of use these words and keep it going, and no one's checking anyone. So
Yeah.
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 Uh,
How would you recommend if you hear someone using something
I
in the
try to
wrong context?
use like the correct term. So in that scenario, I would be like, so you have two different identities that, impact you in different ways, instead of saying like, doubling down on the intersectionality, like that wouldn't be an appropriate use of that. Or if I'm doing any sort of like presentation or whatever, I always cite Kimberly Crenshaw and refer people to her work and talk about the sort of way in which that terminology was created. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I always personally, I have a practice of if someone says something that I'm not familiar with, I generally ask or Google it and see if it's like being used in the appropriate way.
Yeah. I'm good for tell me more.
Yes.
Or what?
What do you mean by that?
Mhm.
Say more about that. So, how have you seen in your experience, sort of like corporate language show up differently across like different generations or identities? And in what ways has it worked well? And how have you seen it lead to miscommunication?
It's a very good question. I started to think about like when I first entered the corporate workspace. And I think as a new hire, I feel like I came in speaking much more plainly. And, as I continue to grow in my career and to the point we made earlier around like learning the language and learning the lingo, then that started to change. And I do think that there is a benefit in speaking more plainly. Like, I think to the point that you made around how much it costs, the miscommunication of
Yes.
$1.2 trillion dollars, of like, if we all just spoke more plainly, we could likely get a lot of things done in not a 47-hour.
Yes.
I actually want to start challenging myself to speak more plainly. This topic has really gathered me in a way that I didn't expect, because I am guilty of,
Yes.
perpetuating, using the language, perpetuating it,
Over
expecting others to
explaining.
use it. Yeah.
Yeah. In my research, I also found another article. I'll see if I can find it and put it in our show notes, that talked about how when people wanted people to respond to a survey, they did this like study. They had one email request that was like really long, had a bunch of context, and one that had like 3 lines, and people responded and completed the survey when they got the email that had like 3 lines. And it was like, yeah, like you buried the lead. I'm not going through all this to then go through, and I'm going to assume like your survey is going to be long too. So
Yeah.
it's like a total deterrent. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I do remember in being in a management training, and I do try to follow this tip of crafting emails in a way that folks can respond with one hand, or one word of like a yes or no, or no, let's talk about this later. Just knowing that folks are always managing multiple things, like
Mhm.
how can you make it such that your email, they can respond to it quickly, like on the go, and it's not something that, to your point, people have to like come back to or
Yeah.
don't answer at all because it's too long.
Can't deal with this right now. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think for me, I have seen in multiple workspaces, and I totally get that. Again, there are some sort of like technical terms and terminologies that are really required to sort of describe the work that is happening. But generally, the average working adult in the US reads at, between a seventh and ninth grade level,
Oh wow.
working adult. So, yeah, it just behooves all of us to bring it down. And I think sometimes it comes across as like a bit of a power play. And I've seen people use this to sort of say, like, oh, this person seems more polished or more professional. And it's like, I don't think that they can actually do the work better or worse necessarily. I don't know that it means that they're more polished or professional just because they're able to speak in a particular way. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I would love for us to use more plain speak for sure, as we're writing things. So,
I
um,
agree.
and then any sort of tips and tricks, for folks as they are, either thinking about using or not using sort of corporate jargon. How do you sort of like ask people to explain that in a way that doesn't sort of like compromise, how you're perceived? You talked a little bit about it earlier, like maybe saying, what do you
Yeah.
mean by that?
Yeah, this is also making me think of like an internship experience I had early in my career at the Transportation Security Administration. And I remember walking in there, and girl, it was like alphabet soup. They had so many acronyms for things. And I was like, I don't know what people are talking about.
Yes.
And it's like, I know that I'm smart.
Yes.
So, like, the fact that I don't understand is not a reflection of me.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm smart. It's a reflection of like the environment. So I think that experience, and for me, I also just don't like being confused. So
Mhm.
if I'm confused, I'm going to try to ask clarifying questions so that I, can understand better. And so some of my favorite things to say in like those scenarios when people are talking above me, it's like, to your point, if we need to bring this down, then I will ask folks or say something like, help me understand what you mean by that, or I love a say more, because I also think when we ask people to say more, then they actually have to think critically about what you're talking about and hopefully, bring it down a level. So the help me understand and say more are two of my favorite things.
Yes. What I will add to that is, what's the action here? I love that,
Mhm.
because sometimes people just say a bunch of things and it's like, I'm not really sure what you're asking me to do. Like, is this an FYI? Is there something that I need to do? Yeah. So I would add, what's the action here?
I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and pivot to our favorite part of our pod, which is do that or don't do that. Given all of the things that we've chatted about today, I'm sure this is going to be a fun little section. So, do you want to go first or I can go first?
You can go first.
Okay. I think we're both going to have a question about this, but the scenario is someone responds to your message with a question that you already answered in your last email to them. Are you hitting them with a per my last email?
That's a great question. It depends on how I'm feeling that day, honestly.
What? You actively use per my last email?
If I feel like I've said something several times, I definitely will. Yeah.
Wow. I'm
Yeah.
shocked.
Or I will just say, as I mentioned before,
Why
so
do
that
you
you know.
say that? Genuinely. Because I hate that term.
It's a sign that you need to tap in, right? That you're
You're just
you are
reminding that person that you've done a bad job thus far. Start reading.
you're not perfect, and I need you to tap in.
Wow. I mean, I hate it. It feels so confrontational to me and unnecessary. Like,
Oh,
obviously this person like overlooked it for whatever the reason. You don't know. Maybe your last email was unclear. Maybe you buried you had 23 paragraphs and it's like
now we're arguing over email.
now I feel
Email.
attacked and now I feel like I need to defend myself like for your last email. It's like, where are you going with this?
I like it
That is
to,
so funny.
to
Stop,
minimize
Karen.
conflict. I feel like that's such a great response. Your last email was unclear. It's like, oh, okay. Let's try this again.
Thanks.
Okay, my do that or don't do that is you get an email from a peer, and at the end of the email, they say that they've copied your boss for visibility. Do
Yeah.
you respond with their boss on CC as well?
Well, my first action is I'm going to call my boss. That's my first action. I've always had a good relationship with like my direct supervisor. Not always. I've made an intention in my career now and moving forward to have a good relationship with my direct supervisor. So that would be my first course of action, is to like call my supervisor and have a conversation about, just give them the context. Um, and then I would just reply all, including my supervisor, with whatever my response is. I typically would not add their supervisor unless my supervisor feels like there's a need to. Again, I generally offer people grace because number one, it's work and life is hard. And I generally feel like if I notice someone being like a little aggressive or confrontational or like weird in that way, I think I'm generally a team player, very amenable. If I drop the ball, I'm apologetic. If I miss something, I try to work with people. So there would be no reason why someone would need to escalate something, um, unless it was a misunderstanding from my perspective. So,
Okay.
what about you? You match
See, I think this is context dependent.
you're matching energies.
If we are, wanting to keep everybody in the loop of what's happening, then I think it's important that your supervisor also know
We're gonna loop
what's
them in. Since
right.
we're looping, let's loop them all in.
Let's widen this loop a little
Yeah.
if necessary. But that's also, I would have a conversation with this peer, not on email as well, to understand, what was the purpose of you needing or feeling like you needed to include my boss. But to your point, I would also have a conversation with my direct supervisor so that they understand and know what my point of view is
Hmm.
in that project. So there would be a lot of conversations that I would have.
Yeah. I think generally when I've seen that happen, it's been a product of miscommunication. And
Mhm.
my supervisor is being looped in because someone feels like they're not getting the answer they need from me, or like an expectation wasn't being met, or we weren't aligned. So see, that's why you got to get alignment. Um, okay. For my Gen Z folks, um, are we using emojis in emails?
Oh. Uh, I'm agnostic. I say do that or don't do that according to, you know, your work environment. Now, I think that we have to keep the work emojis right. Like there are a subset of emojis that are appropriate for work
Yes.
that we can use, and then there are others that we should not enter the chat.
Yes.
We should keep those outside of work. I do like it now that for many, I think this happens in both Gmail and Microsoft, where you can give a reaction to an email
Oh, yes.
instead of responding. I love that. I
Yes.
feel like that's such a great way of like clearing
Acknowledgement.
inbox.
Yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm generally agnostic, although I've seen people use like too many emojis, um, and it's unclear what they're saying at times. Like,
It adds
okay,
adds
nothing was funny here, but crying, laughing face, like, sure, okay. I'm not sure what's going on. So, as long as it helps to bring clarity, I'm totally cool with it.
yeah, I like that. Okay, my next one is you receive a very long email let's say 4 paragraphs or more, it feels like it is rambling and it is confusing. Do you reply with, I'm not reading this?
Oh no. I probably just wouldn't reply, but and that would be the message I sent. Yeah. And then if someone contacted me or said like, "Oh, you never responded to my email," I would maybe try to like schedule 15 minutes with them or 10 minutes with them to like talk about it, be like, "Oh, hey, I'd like to ask you a question about this." And then in that conversation, just be like, "Hey, what was that about?"
Okay.
Yeah.
How do we correct too long emails? How do we help people email better?
I don't know. It's got to be a movement. Maybe it starts with us. I'm not sure. I generally, I have a girlfriend. Shout out to my friend Chelsea, who, when I started teaching, she had spent years teaching, and she always told me, like, if no one's learning, no one's teaching. And it's like the same thing in communications. If no one understands, you didn't say anything. So I think if more of us oriented to like the listener rather than like, what am I trying to say, we would get a lot better because no one wants to actually read the 10 paragraph thing, but we all write it, right? Like, so whenever we're crafting our message, it's like, but you have to include this and this and this and this. It's like, you don't because
Mhm.
no one, no, including you, no one wants to read all of that. So
Yeah.
if you can at least at the top, like say 2 lines and this, and then if people desire to read the book, they can scroll down. But I don't know.
Look, at this point, it's a novel.
No one has
We
time.
don't.
I have 40 other emails to get through, like
Yeah.
everyone thinks their thing is so important. So,
I also think we have so many modes of communication. I
mhm.
know it's at times for me, it can be overwhelming. It's like it's email, it's chat, it is Zoom calls, it is team calls, and it's like say the thing at the top and be as concise as possible because I have, to your point, all these inputs to now respond to.
Yes, make it clear, make it plain for sure. So let's go. I think that's a great transition to our takeaways. What are some of your top takeaways from our chat today, Karen?
I think my biggest takeaway is to bring it down. I loved when you said that, and I feel like it is a good mantra for many of us that are in, the corporate nonprofit, just space, corporate space in terms of working in an office of let's all do our best to bring it down and reduce that $1.2 trillion cost of
Yes,
miscommunication.
exactly. Yes, agreed. I think generally I'm thinking about like language should make our work easier. So like how do we create like the shortest lines from point A to B? Like the whole point is just to get there. We don't have to make ourselves seem smarter or better than or whatever the thing is. Let's just get there quickly. So,
Yes, I love that.
yes.
All right. Well, this was a really fun conversation. Ani, thanks for leading us in this topic today. We want to remind our listeners that if you enjoyed this conversation and previous episodes, please be sure to leave us a review and share this podcast with your peers and colleagues. And if you'd like to reach Ani and I directly, feel free to email us at the don't do that pod@gmail.com. And until next time, remember, don't
Do
do that.